Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session this afternoon on preparing for Census 2020 and what your city or town should know. My name is Chris Fetzer. I'm the Executive Director at Northern Arizona Council of Governments and the moderator today. I'm sure you've heard it more than once today, unless you were in that other session, but all of our conference and presentation materials are available on both the League's website as well as the mobile conference app. So if you look ahead to April 2020, when the next census will take place, it's roughly 19 months from now. And you might say, well, that's a long way out. Why are we talking about this today? Or you might think, well, 19 months isn't that far out. Maybe we should be talking about it today. But either way, right now is an ideal time to begin, if you haven't already, local activities to gear up for 2020 to ensure a successful count for your community. So today we'll be hearing from the Census Bureau. What's new for 2020? There are some notable changes that you should be aware of. And then we'll hear some local and regional perspectives on complete count efforts that are already underway. Our speakers today are Pauline Nunez. Pauline is a partnerships coordinator for the Census Bureau from the Denver Regional Office. Kim Musselman, special assistant to the Coconino County Manager. And Scott Wilkins, Senior Project Manager for Maricopa Association of Governments. Our first speaker will be Pauline, and Pauline does have to catch a flight later this afternoon, so after her presentation, we'll have time for a little bit of Q&A, and then we'll continue with the presentations and wrap up with Q&A with our final two presenters. So welcome, Pauline.
Thank you. It's blinding over here. Now I know how the rock stars feel. So, my name is Pauline Nunez. I'm a partnership coordinator for the 12th state region, Denver region. And I wanted to ask, first of all, how many of you in your cities and counties have started Census 2020 efforts? Can I see a show of hands? Very nice. And what's going on with the others? Oh, you're not in the city where you would have to do that. That's why you haven't raised your hand. Okay, very good. So, I'm going to talk about what's at stake for cities and communities for 2020. I also wanted to give some update information about our hiring that's coming up. We are starting our first census operations 2019. We're going to start recruiting. We go live September 7th, so we're going. The train is started. So in fact, I was interviewing people yesterday in Yuma and today here in Phoenix for outreach positions, and you'll hear more about that later. So why do we do a census? Just for fun? Who said apportionment? Very good. Go get yourself a census bag. And by the way, as part of you coming this afternoon to Census, you got a sneak preview of promotional items, so please make sure you take a bag back with you to say, what are we doing about 2020 Census? So apportionment is one, and what's the other? What's that? Statistics, yes. Statistics, okay. So let's talk about that. So, Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution, it's the law. The census is the largest peacetime mobilization that our country undertakes. And that means staffing up, putting offices, real estate, what have you. It's big. Also, the decennial census, the uses of census data are apportionment, as someone said. We draw congressional and state legislative districts, school districts, and voting precincts. So is there skin in the game here for Arizona and for your community? Enforce voting rights and civil rights legislation, distribute federal dollars to states, inform planning decisions of federal, tribal, state, and local government, and inform organizational decisions. So apportionment. Okay, trivia question. Will, in the 2020 census, Arizona gain a congressional seat? Yes or no? How many say yes? Okay. All right. I was going to say the no's do not have it. The yeses do. Yes. It is predicted, not by the Census Bureau, but Election Data Services, which has a website that looks at who's going to gain and who's going to lose, because there are losers. So this was the last census. Who gained? In Arizona did gain a congressional seat. And you can see what were the other states. In our 12-state region, you see Utah, Texas. In the last census, we had Nevada and then Arizona. And then you can see who's losing right there. So Arizona, another reason why you want to make sure that your community is counted and counted well, is that there's a congressional seat up for grabs. And then I have this as part of the handouts. I don't know if you all have seen this, but we've been using this a lot. We've used it with Governor Ducey's office. We've used it with mayors. And it's a study that was done by the Institute of Public Policy. And it will be in your handouts, and I guess they're electronic. Okay, so that should be there. And it's a really good selling point because, you know, we've always said the tagline of we have certain $1 billion that are at stake annually. In this case, it's 675. And everybody says, oh, that's nice, Pauline. But when we look at the state of Arizona and what's at stake, then you look at individually per capita. So the George Washington University Institute of Public Policy did a project called Counting for Dollars 2020, where they looked at 16 large federal assistance programs that distribute funds based on what? The decennial census. And so when they looked at one fiscal year, it was 2015, and they looked at these programs that include things like Medicaid, SNAP, highway planning, child care, Section 8, low-income home energy assistance, all have skin in the game. These are some of the bigger programs that decennial numbers are based on. So if you think about, and this is an estimate, missing one person, one Arizonan, it's $19.79 per capita per year. Do the numbers add up? And remember, the numbers that you have in 2020 are the numbers you live with for the next 10 years, and it's also the numbers that we base upon for looking at population change. So whatever you come up with, you live with for 10 years. So it's important that in the next 2 years there's some time, energy, and resources invested in that. Would you not agree? Because so much is at stake. And again, I invite you to look at this study. It's just a one-pager, and it has a total of program obligations, and it also has a per capita number, and then it also breaks it down, as you can see here, by program. See, when I've talked to educators in Arizona, I've talked about the National School Lunch Program, and whoever I've been speaking to always has a program that they focus on a lot. And I can tell you, governors always go straight to that highway planning and construction. So our 2020 census goals, it is to maintain quality, reduce cost, but this is a census that has been like no other, because we are really looking at efficiency in building an address list. When many of you participated in LUCA, the local update of census addresses, we have designed easier ways to respond. We want to use better use of the information we already have as the Census Bureau, and we are looking towards having more efficient field operations. So first of all, I want to talk about operations. I hope you noticed in the back that I had 2 cards back there. They are not live yet, but this will be live come September 7th. So we are recruiting, and we will have 2 types of jobs. There'll be field jobs, and there'll be managerial jobs. And so we have the census.gov, and the reason we have it in business cards so you can take it with you and say, oh, are you interested in working for us? And it has on here the two different types of jobs, and we'll have two different types of systems. One will be USA jobs for the office management positions, and then one will be the field jobs that will be all over Arizona, which means that in the field jobs are more part-time jobs. Like next year, we're going to hire people to do address listing for our address canvassing operation, which is the first operation of the 2020 census. And then we'll have managerial jobs, which we'll start recruiting right after Labor Day weekend. We'll start recruiting for the first office to open up in Arizona, which will be here in Phoenix, and it'll be in Central Phoenix, but all of Arizona will care what goes on. You want to make sure that we have very good recruits for that, because they will be doing address canvassing. And all of you will want to care about who gets hired, because they are going to be doing your census count. Who's going to be in group quarters? How about your universities? What about rural communities? You will want to know what is the office that's going to be handling my county. And I asked Chris about this. I got a map yesterday that shows each of the offices in Arizona and what are the counties that are going to be related to that particular office. So I can share that, and they can, and he said he would post it on the Municipal League's website. Okay? So that's operation. So we'll be going live in our census.gov as of September 7th. All right? Also, we have a handout there about the jobs, in that what to expect when applying for a 2020 census job. And we created this flyer, and again, it's part of our handouts, because it's not like applying for Walmart. Like the next day, you're not going to hear that you will be hired by us, because we have an online assessment. There's also a background check, because even if you're doing an enumeration, you're going to be handling sensitive information. So we don't want just anybody going to your house and knocking on the door collecting this information. It also has on this flyer the office management jobs, and then that how long it takes us. We will have an online assessment as part of the application process, and there will be a paper option for rare circumstances. But please understand, remember, part of that efficient field operations, our application process will be online and in English only. So then, if someone doesn't have a computer at home, we will need communities to be creative and say, hey, we're going to be hosting, like for example, we will have an office in Flagstaff in Coconino County. So in Coconino County, we really need to work very closely with you all to make sure that potential applicants, if they don't have a computer in their house, that they can come to a library, community center, or what have you to apply for one of our jobs, because they will be online. It'll be very rare to get a paper application. And also to do the assessment will take some time. And libraries these days have real limited time on when you can use their computer. So we've got to plan for that. But we can't plan for it in January. We have to plan for it this fall, okay, for these reasons. And that's covered here on this handout. We developed this after February, that I went to a meeting in San Antonio for a kickoff and said, we better let the public know what's going on with our jobs, that it's not like overnight, you have to do a background check, it will be all online. So those are the things that are important for the communities that you serve know. So we're saying the other thing that's different from the last time around is that we are having 6 offices in Arizona. And I have some other information from our operations. So I'm hiring by next January, 27, really by next June, 27 partnership specialists, total by June 19th. But then there's 2 types of positions. We'll have office positions that include all folks who work in the ACO. And the office positions, so we'll have an office in Flagstaff, we'll have an office in Window Rock, we'll have an office in Tucson, and then 3 offices here in Maricopa County. Only 6 offices, which is a little bit different from last time around in 2010. Again, we'll have work-at-home positions for recruiting assistants that we'll be recruiting this fall, as well as listers who will work during the day. Those are usually the field jobs tend to be more part-time. The office jobs in those 6 locations will be full-time. And then we'll have about 8 to 10 managerial positions. If a person has worked for the federal government before and they're retiree, we do have a waiver for those individuals. So, and the only thing, I know that there's a lot of seniors in Arizona. We welcome their application. We want their expertise, we want their experience. However, keep in mind they have to be current, because even their payroll this time around will be submitted by a mobile device. We are really going towards paperless. And so that's real important. Again, I'm telling you because I'm hoping that you'll also educate your community about what to expect for 2020 census. We also, in Phoenix, have a national processing center. They will hire up to 800 positions for the National Processing Center here in Phoenix. So that's another competitor for us to get quality people. But I mean, we're all part of the same family. So again, it's 8 to 10 managerial jobs. We'll be hiring about 16 recruiting assistants throughout the state as work-from-home positions. The counties we're targeting are Mojave, Yuma, Coconino, Yavapai, Navajo, Cochise, Pima, Pinal, Gila, Maricopa, and Window Rock. And these jobs will also apply through Census 2020 jobs and should start between January and February 2019. So altogether in 2019, it would be safe to say that we'll be having about 600 to 650 total positions. And then again, that's in addition to the 800 national processing. So we have a big job to recruit. And the reason I'm standing in front of you giving you this information is to say, we need your help. We need good quality people, and we know what the economy looks like here. And in some areas, it'll be easier to recruit than others, correct? So keep that in mind, because in Colorado, I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a huge challenge, especially in the Denver area. So the other thing that's new is that for the first time ever, you will be able to self-respond by internet. And you guys are all looking at me saying, ooh, that's good and it's bad, right? Because the internet is a two-edged sword. But you will be able, March 23rd, 2020, March 23rd, 2020, we will go live. And Arizonans can get on their computer or on their phone and answer the census. That's a huge advantage if we educate our population correctly. It's a huge advantage because we don't then have to worry too much about, well, I didn't get that paper questionnaire. We will have mobile response tables. It's really a different ballgame when you think about, answering the census. So there'll be 3 ways to answer: internet, phone, and paper format. There always will be those, like for example, when you go to vote, there'll always be people that want to go to the voting booth, right? And so, there'll be Aunt Mary or Susanna or whatever, they'll want to get that paper questionnaire. Well, they will have the option to do so. But for the first time, you will be able to fill out your questionnaire by just calling. And when we tested this in Providence, Rhode Island, we found that Hispanic populations, and this does not surprise me, but that they like using the phone to answer the questionnaire. So that's a big plus for Arizona, correct? But we will have, because Phoenix is so diverse, we will have also the option of 12 languages, 12 people, not 12 people, but 12 languages capability when you call us up. So that's big, and that helps response rates. so that if all else fails, they will be able to do the paper form. The other big change about that is if people ignore what they get in the mail and they are still not complying with the Census 2020, if we are out finding a non-response follow-up and someone sees that we're out in their neighborhood, they can actually still respond by internet. And we've been able actually to get like a 15% bounce because people don't want anybody to come to their door. Okay? So that's a very big boom for us to be able to get responses to the 2020 questionnaire. This is the timeline. I have a more detailed timeline as part of your handouts. And this was developed by our Assistant Regional Director, Vicki McIntyre, because she combined the data collection operations with outreach. So right now, we're on the engage and education phase. But very soon now, we will be in promotion in 2019. Because if you think, say for example in your community, you have a big fiesta in the fall of 2019, and you want to make sure that there's a 2020 census booth, you've got to plan for that now. Because that's it. We go live March 23rd, and we wrap it up August 2020. So you've got to be thinking about what is the life cycle and what are the major events of your city. So on March 23rd, you may be thinking, well, what will I get before then? So for those individual housing units, they will be invited that have a mailable address. And I know what you're going to tell me. Well, Pauline, Arizona has a lot of rural communities. We know. That's our 12 states in the Denver region. We're mostly rural. But if you have mailable address, you'll get a letter mailed to you, a reminder postcard, and then if you still ignore us, we'll send you a paper questionnaire. There will be some areas that will just right away get bilingual questionnaires in Spanish and English. Or we will hand deliver to those P.O. boxes, non-USPS, housing unit delivery. We will list those housing units and we'll leave a questionnaire, Spanish in certain areas, and a letter with other response options. So then, for example, if I live in an area where there's a lot of second homes, like for example, I'm thinking right off the bat, Santa Fe, New Mexico, or in Colorado, the ski areas, where there's a lot of people that have, second homes or whatever. Then I would, if I was the mayor of that community, I would make sure that I would have education about if you don't get a questionnaire on your address, or you just only get Federal Express or UPS or what have you, you still have a chance to fill out the questionnaire. You do not want to miss those people in your community. Now I know a big question here is the residence rules. And we have a memorandum that both Emily and Vianney, which I forgot to introduce, sorry. So in the crowd is our partnership specialist, wave, Emily Verdugo, and Vianney Celestino. Both have copies and can direct you to where on census.gov we have the residence rules for 2020. But usually it is this. It's 6 months, 1 day. If you live 50% in Arizona and 50% in Canada, say like if you go to Yuma, there's a lot of Canadians there. So then if I'm a mayor of Yuma, I want to make sure that I really entice those Canadians to live 1 more day there so they can be part of my count. But seriously, you want to make sure you educate your temporary residents to see what are they going to decide, but it's 6 months and 1 day. And of course, on the residency rules in our memorandum series, it also talks about how we count military, how we count group quarters, homeless populations, or whatever. So it's detailed in that. So I also want to mention that those of you who have universities in your communities, pay attention. 18 to 24 is one of our hard-to-count populations. Therefore, especially those that are not on a college campus, because there's a lot of kids these days that want to live outside the college campus and be in their own apartment. They want mom and dad to pay for it, but they want to be in their own apartment, right? So those are hard to count, and we will be having early non-response follow-up. first time ever, to make sure we capture them before they go home in May. Again, that is in your favor, because we want to have everybody counted. So we'll have early NRFU, and then May 2022, July 2020, we will have that non-response follow-up. But keep in mind, March 23rd is the critical dates for you all to do your outreach, to do your education, not May. May is when we hit the streets. That's when we collect information from those who have been ignoring us. That's not where you want to educate your community. You want self-response, because that questionnaire that is filled out in the privacy of one's home, or if they went to the library, is a more accurate account of what that count in that household is. Also, part of our education here is to not only say we're counting households, but we're counting who's in the household. Because guess what? Another age group is that we miss. 0 to 5. 0 to 5. For whatever reason, our research shows, and other people have done research as well, people forget to count babies. I know. How do you do that? They're screaming. I don't know. But also, seriously, there's different types of housing arrangements these days, and custody arrangements, grandparents taking care of children, so they forget to count that. They think, oh, well, it's not my child really, but they're here all the time, and I'm a grandparent. They may forget to count the child. You don't want that to happen. Or if I'm here living with 2 roommates, and maybe all of us are just, living together, but we all pay part of the rent, we need to count each and every person in that household. So that's part of our community education too. Not only do you want to count that person, but you want to count everyone in there. And I know you're thinking, ooh, that's a challenge. But it's an important part of your community outreach. And then late August, our area census offices close, and then we do a QC about how we did the count. And December 31st, 2020, good, bad, or indifferent, we will deliver those counts to the president. And we hope to deliver the most accurate count ever to the president. And of course, if you remember in 2020, what's another challenge that we'll have? What's that? Elections, yeah. So that, last week I was in D.C. and we were talking about our national advertising campaign. It's going to be a whole different ballgame to purchase ads, right? Because how expensive is that? And we're a little federal agency. We cannot compete against presidential candidates. So just keep that in mind again for our outreach, because we have to be creative to encourage people to respond to the census. So Community Partnership and Engagement Program, that's the part that I'm part of, but work very closely with operations. So our goals and challenges is to motivate people to respond, assure residents and respondents that their data is confidential and secure, educate about the importance, and support communities in their mobilization efforts. And my favorite word in this is mobilization, because that's what it is. We have got to mobilize our communities to respond and understand the importance of the 2020 census. These 2 spheres look at what is the census staff and what is state and local community responsibilities. So we will be having partnership specialists in each state, and right now we have ENA and Emily. And we also have a tribal specialist, Fred Stevens. We will be adding very quickly to staff here. We also will be hiring tribal specialists. We have people that do data dissemination. We will support your local efforts for a complete count program. We will, in the fall of 2018, the new fiscal year, be starting our national media contract, finally. We'll be having promotional materials. We will be initiating our Statistics in Schools program. We have national partnerships going on with organizations as well as industry. And we will have national promotional items, and we have the little bags that have come out. That's the beginning. What is the responsibility of a local community? First and foremost, you provide trusted voices. Now, if I go to Yuma and say, fill out the census, people say, oh, that's nice, who's she? But if I'm a local priest, if I'm the mayor, and granted, the mayor has to have a good reputation, right? So, you're laughing. So the mayor or a county commissioner, the people, or if I'm a school teacher, school principal, if I'm a community health educator, you will listen to that person much more than you'll listen to someone that flies in from Denver and say, fill out the form. So the trusted voices are a very important part of a 2020 census campaign. We have asked Governor Ducey's office to form a state complete count commission, and BNA met for the governor's office. We have been meeting with his office to make sure that on the state level, we have a commitment for the governor and his staff to also publicize the efforts and how important it is to participate in the 2020 census. And we're getting there. And it's very important to have a state complete count committee because think of the potential of going through all of public health by the governor's office. We also will be forming county, local, and tribal complete count committees, and we have brochures that also are part of your handouts that talk about what a complete count committee is, and then you all will provide local resources for your tailored promotion. Now, we will have a lot of things that you can download starting this fall. So this is just a snapshot of the Response Outreach Area Mapper. So we have a mapping tool that's available to you that just got updated. And this is a mapping application that is available at census.gov/Rome. And what this enables you to do is to look at the census tracts in your county to see if we scored them as low response. And there's about 24 characteristics or variables that make a census tract be low response or no. And what is that based on? How it performed in the 2010, race and ethnicity, poverty level, median household income, age group, 0 to 5, 18 to 24, renting. Are you a renter? Because renting, if you have a huge population, say in a downtown area like Phoenix, that are renting, that's considered at risk or less likely to fill out a census questionnaire. So I'm hoping that I'm broadening your thinking about who is at risk to fill out that questionnaire, because you don't want to necessarily throw limited resources to people who will respond, right? You want to be strategic. And this Response Outreach Area Mapper allows you to be strategic because those darker areas, those are the ones you want to target because they have a high low response rate. There's also data compiled that they have data tables with it. And people like Mag will help you with the data, correct? Mm-hmm. And this is what this is another shot. I don't know if you can see this much, but you can see the dark areas here. This is part of a census tract in Maricopa County, and this is the way it comes out. So it tells you the total population in the census tract, what is the median household income, what's the population under 5. So these are all variables that will score a census tract either low response or not. And you may, as a city or a community or county, say, we're going to go after those census tracts that have 20% or 25% low response rates. We're going to prioritize those. So that's what it looks like. And then here's the Complete Count Committee. There's the brochure there. So typically a Complete Count Committee has either a mayor or a county chair appoint a committee from different parts of the community, like faith-based, higher ed, schools, refugee community. And this committee will be the task force. It'll be the center of what that community's 2020 census outreach will be in operations. And the complete count committees are where we're going to go to and say, can you help us recruit for jobs in your community? And so it's very important to have one of these in your community. Statistics in schools, we have an SIS or Statistics in School website now that are free they're not really lesson plans, but they're enhancements to a curriculum based on statistics. They're free. And actually, if you're a grandparent or a parent or an aunt or uncle and want to spend some time on our website teaching, we have very nice activities based into census statistics for kids from K through 12. We will be enhancing that for 2020 census. The media and advertising, again, like I said, we will begin that starting October 1st, and we'll be looking at what's going to be going on. They will enhance a whole partnership and whole partner part of Census.gov for 2020 census. So we'll be able to download different things like this. We will have a partner toolkit, and you can see here it has a community outreach toolkit. That is already on our website, and there's like a Census 101, what you need to know. Everyone counts. It's about fair representation. It's in the Constitution. So we already have things to download on Census.gov. So what's next? Critical steps. So in 2018, what we're really focusing on the outreach part is the formation of complete count committees throughout Arizona. September 7th, census jobs go live. And we'll be recruiting for, again, that early area census office in Central Phoenix. We'll have 50 jobs. We'll also have resident recruiting assistants statewide, and I told you what counties we're targeting. And we also will be targeting partnership specialists and as well as media specialists. 2019 is a big year because that's when we promote. If you have special events throughout your year, you want to make sure census is part of that. And then 2020, we begin, there will be advertising campaign nationwide, and this is when we really want to, like if any of you have been involved with a political campaign, you know, you have that whole get out the vote. Well, in ours, it's get out the count. And that's when it's the call to action. And so we want, on March 23rd, for Arizona to go live, correct? We want Arizona to be a model state. Not, you know, I heard yesterday, I think it was, or the day before, that Arizona was last in, I think, mental health issues with children. We don't want that for Arizona in the 2020 census. We want to be number one here. You know, you have a fantastic metropolitan area here with all kinds of resources. There is no reason not to have a top count. But we've got to do it now. So 2020, we will have a lot of promotion around April 1st, 2020 Census Day. And then finally, you know, I met with the state of Colorado, and they're saying, oh, by May we'll be done. And I said, no, you won't. That's when we have non-response follow-up. So you have to make sure that you're thinking about your strategy all the way through August. Because you do not want to, you want to make sure that you're encouraging enumerators to knock on the right doors and make sure people open those doors. But there'll be hardly any work to do in Arizona because we've done our job so well to get people to self-respond, right? If you go to any grocery store, there'll always be someone there saying, make sure you fill out your questionnaire. The outreach will be different in that last time around, remember we had questionnaire assistance centers? Again, it'll be electronic. We'll have mobile response tables. So you can help. You're the expert of your communities. We need your best ideas. We need your best foot forward now. Not tomorrow. We need it now. And this fall is critical planning time. So we are hiring more people. You've got VNA, you've got also Emily, and they have a lot of energy. Emily drove me to Yuma and back. And she still was thinking of coming to the reception last night at this conference. So they're both from Arizona. They want to help, and they want to work with you, and it's, as well as I do. So any questions at this point? Because I've got to catch a plane, but my fellow panelists will allow me to answer a few questions. Yes?
You mentioned in the first area we have the opportunity to have up to 15 that the other cities with major military installations also have a population of people with very, very important foreign languages in Yuma, Tucson, and Sierra Vista. Are you willing to consider allowing that same thing for outside of Phoenix area?
Well, yes. I mean, everybody will have access to, we have for the telephone 12 major languages. However, we actually have access to like about 50 major languages in addition to that. So we have a whole, I mean, we just got a presentation from Dr. Kim, who is our language support person. So this takes a lot of work to do, but no, we'll have, even with our enumerators, they actually will be sent out with language cards that people will actually be able to touch what language that they go to. But language is big because we want people to understand and fill out. And this is the first time we've actually had phone access that people with different languages can respond to. They were just being helped the last time, but they can actually fill out the questionnaire by phone. Yes?
How essential is it for everybody to fill out all the questions? There's a lot of questions on there. People don't want to let the government know what they make and stuff like that. So, you know, when you're talking to somebody to fill out the census report, they're going to say, well, I don't want to do that because, you know, I don't want the government to know how much money I make or whatever.
So you're talking about the American Community Survey. On the census questionnaire, so in 2000 we had the long form and the short form. By 2010 we only had the short form because in 2005 we started doing the American Community Survey, which is a random sampling. So the American Community Survey gives you the data of socioeconomic data. So that shows you how the United States, what we look like socioeconomically. The purpose of the census is the count and apportionment. So it's two different things. We do not ask income on the questionnaire. The other thing too, one of the things, because I also worked the 2010 census in Arizona, is that you have a lot of seniors. And I also had Nevada and New Mexico, which has a lot of seniors. And one thing that happens during a census, that again, the congressional offices helped me a lot with this, is scams. And so we wanted to make sure that people knew what enumerators look like and what they would be carrying, so that they would not be answering the phone and giving their information or be saying that we're collecting Social Security. We do not collect Social Security numbers on the census. So we just wanted to be real clear with the seniors of the community what we collect and what we don't collect. Yes?
What about the undocumented immigrants questions as far as race and nationality? Do they need to include that in filling out the census?
So you're asking about race and ethnicity?
Well, I guess...
There's race and ethnicity.
And if they were to leave that out, would that not count then on the form or their address? I'm speaking from the point of we have a lot of perhaps undocumented immigrants in our community, and them being afraid to come forward and put their name down, their information down. And I know that there was a lot of members of Congress trying to get them to take that out. Just curious where it stands now. I haven't had an update recently.
Okay, so you first asked about race and ethnicity. That's different than, are you talking about the...
Leave that part out.
Leave that part out. Okay, you're talking about the citizenship question. So right now I can't comment publicly on that because we are under litigation. And so we're up in the air about that. And even also what is our due date as to what's our drop-dead deadline. Because we don't have any slippage in our deadlines. We must have the count done, and we must have the numbers ready for the President by Constitution in December 31st. What's very important for us, working with communities, is to make sure that people know that we collect information only for statistical purposes. No one can get into our, our data. That is why we collect. It's for statistical purposes. And that's a major challenge, and we have to continually, and even this time around, what's also a challenge is the internet. You know, in 2010, we didn't have the social media that we have now. And in 2010, we didn't have the worries about hacking and whatever that we do now. And so it's a major challenge to educate the community about the confidentiality and the security of their data. Yes?
So are the dreamers included in this, or is that still part of the litigation as far as, you know, because are we going to pull the dreamers' rights? The DACA, are they going to...
The census doesn't have anything with the DREAM Act, but what we do count is the residents. If you live in the state of Arizona, we will count you as best way as we can. So as far as dreamers or not dreamers or whatever, if you live here, I mean, to tell you, like in Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, they had a huge contingent of about 5,000 soldiers from Germany. They happened to be there during 2010. Guess what? Alamogordo, New Mexico got to count them because they were residing in New Mexico and in Alamogordo. Now then, if I have someone that's going to go to Canada and say, no, Canada's my major country, well, they will be counted in Canada. Okay, so remember, we're counting people who live here, no matter what of their citizenship. Okay, and Chris says thank you, and I say thank you. And Arizona, are we going to be counted? Yes. Okay, good. Don't look at the
Which one is yours?
right here. Okay, so how do I get it to my view?
I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. I feel like my paper copies.
Good afternoon, everyone. I realize that myself and my counterpart here from Maricopa are the only people standing between you and happy hour, so we will do our best to either keep you entertained and hopefully get through our information and get you on your way maybe a little bit early. I appreciate the time today, and what I'd like to talk to you about today, my name is Kim Musselman, and I am with Coconino County, and we in Coconino County have already established our complete count committee. We're actually calling it our community census team, and we joined up with the City of Flagstaff to get our committee going actually about 4 to 5 months ago. We started talking about it and started organizing, and we have made a lot of ground already, and I'd like to share with you some of those things that we're doing, as well as let you know that it was helpful to hear some of the things Pauline was talking about and the things in the timeline for when they're going to happen. And I'd like to also address some of the things with respect to how we're approaching dealing with the concerns that our community members have with regards to confidentiality, to the citizenship question, and some of those other things. And so I'd like to share some of that with you as we go along. Oh, I guess this is flipping, but that is not flipping. Sorry, we have. I don't know. I apologize. It's not. It's not flipping on there. Yeah, I'll keep going. Yeah, you bet. While Chris is trying to find the AV specialist, I'll go ahead and keep going. So in Coconino County, we took a look at, okay, what are our issues and where is our undercount risk high for Coconino County? And as many of you know, Coconino County is the largest geographical county, and so we have, of course, Flagstaff, our metropolitan area, which has over half of our population, and then the other half of our population is spread out all over the northern half half of the state. So we have a very large percentage of adults at NAU who are students, because we have one of the 3 state universities in our community, which, as Pauline was saying, that 18 to 25-year-olds are one of the most difficult to count. Partly that's because they're students. They may live 9 months out of the year in Flagstaff because they're going to college, but they come back to Phoenix or wherever else that they may live. And so getting a communication effort in place is a very high priority for us and in working with our university. We also have a huge population of renters. I know many of you do as well. Flagstaff, we have a super high cost of living. Sedona, other areas, and certainly compared to, even in our more rural areas, compared to incomes, cost of living is very high. So there's a huge percentage of renters. And when we talk about difficulties and challenges with renters, it's not only the fact that you have a lot of renters, but you have people who are living in households who might be renting a place that the lease agreement says that there's 4 people on the lease, but there's 7 people living in the house. And I think that that's going to be a big challenge as we start to do our education outreaches. How do we communicate to those folks that are living in those situations that it is about counting every single person in that household? And some of those people in that household may be living in mother-in-law's quarters, off the back of the house, garages that have been converted into other living quarters, and they may not even know each other. But yet there's going to be one number, if you will, for the person to submit to the census, and that they need to be able to count all of those folks. We have a very large percentage of minority populations. That's all right. And certainly a large geographic area with remote rural areas. And in 2000, Coconino County had an undercount that was pretty significant, about 3,000. And when you take the number that Pauline was giving, and that's how we went about getting our funding, and I'm going to talk about that here in just a minute. If you consider that each person equates to over $1,900, then 3,000, that is a $6 million loss in funding. So that's huge, as you can imagine. One of the things that certainly we have looked at. Go ahead and do what you need to do. Sorry. One of the things that we've looked at is certainly using the Roam tool that Pauline was showing. And if we get the slides up, you'll be able to see it. If we don't, you'll be able to see that certainly our undercount areas included those census tracts that included the university areas, and then certainly lots of our outlying rural areas. So as we work together as a team, we are looking at now we might be making progress here.
Let's see if I can get this now. I just gotta.
But as we're working as a team, we are looking at where are we going to best put our efforts, because we can't do it all, and we don't have time, and we don't have the funding to do it all. So where are those high risk and hard to count locations?
Now,
yes?
You have this up here, but you're not going to be able to see it down here, unfortunately.
Okay.
So you're going to have to look back every once in a while.
All right. So don't look at the computer screen. All right.
I'm sorry.
No problem. Here's the road map, just so you can quickly see. And as you see there where the word Flagstaff is, you can see the dark blue area in there, and that certainly is, not only is it just our university specifically, but then other areas and populations within there, and then of course a lot of the larger rural area. So what have we done? What Coconino County did and what the City of Flagstaff has done is they have each assigned a census coordinator. I happen to be that person for Coconino County, and my counterpart in the City of Flagstaff is Sarah Dector, and we have gotten together with and started reaching out in our county and our city, and got a lot of great people to the table. There's a lot of people interested in helping make sure we get an accurate count, because as all of you know sitting in here, the way in which we're going to be able to provide for our communities is dependent on getting an accurate count in the census. What we did is we went to our council, to our board of supervisors, and said we are proposing that the county and the city each put in $2 per resident that is likely to be counted. So if you say our population is 150,000, and about half of that population resides within the city of Flagstaff, both the city and the county committed $75,000 for fiscal year 19 and then also for fiscal year 20, which is roughly $2 per person that we intend to count. Those funds for fiscal year 19 have been allocated through the budget process, and they are being, set aside and likely will primarily be spent on advertising, education, and then also assisting with many of those efforts to provide access, that electronic access, as Pauline was talking about, in areas where we can set up and have folks, and help the census folks make sure that our communities are being counted. So how is our community complete count committee, the framework set up? We have gone with a very informal structure in the sense of we went before our board and our councils and presented this idea and got their full support of it. But ultimately, we are providing quarterly updates to our Board of Supervisors representative. There's a council or mayor representative from the city, and then of course our city and county managers. Now obviously in Coconino County we have several other cities and towns within Coconino County, and we are making efforts to reach out and have done that to several of them. And if you happen to be sitting in here and you are one of those towns or cities in Coconino County, I would ask you to please reach out to me, because we're trying to make those connections and make sure that we are tying into each and every one of the communities that make up all of Coconino County. The management team will then provide the oversight ultimately of the committee's going to make recommendations about how we're going to spend that money that these two government entities have allocated, and ultimately be the oversight in terms of how that money is utilized. Of course, our geographic area, while we are partnering directly with the city of Flagstaff, is going to be inclusive of all of Coconino County, and the biggest part of our efforts are in developing those subcommittees. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of the things that the groups that we've already identified. But certainly, as Pauline was saying, getting ready to identify all those events, the places that we need to make sure that we are. Now it's not moving my slide again. That's too bad. Okay. I apologize for the technical difficulty here. So, who do we have at the table already? Certainly getting NAU at the table was very important to us. We have a great relationship. We've got their newly hired community outreach director is sitting with us at the table, and of course, our local governments, the community college, we've got folks at the table. We have our school districts. Folks are joining and sitting at our community census team meetings from the schools. A big key piece that we've recently just started doing some presentations and reaching out to are our interfaith councils. We have diversity groups, an interfaith council, and we are targeting all of those folks to make sure that they have the information, because they are the trusted voices in those communities. We know as representatives of government, we may not be that trusted voice because we work for the government. And so it's finding those other folks in the community to partner with us to make that happen. Also, as school is gearing up, using the schools, the PTOs, those other places that define areas and help us connect to our communities. Our local United Way, other private nonprofits, our community action teams, those are all different areas where you can tap into folks that are connected to those communities that may be the least likely folks to fill out their census form. The other thing that we're doing is utilizing that Washington University study, finding that connection to whatever group you're talking to. What do they care about? Whether it is a group that you're talking to the kids are in Head Start or they are WIC recipients, whether are folks who are retired, who are still driving on the roads, finding that connection to why does the census matter to every single one of us. Since you can't see my slides, I'm going to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Certainly, the last thing I want to touch on is how we're communicating the difference in the Census 2020. As Paulina was talking about, really for us explaining that it is going to be internet-based. And how are we approaching that? We have plans to make sure that we're utilizing our bookmobiles, our libraries, our other community centers in our small towns and cities, so that folks who may not have good internet, it doesn't, I mean, most people have some kind of it, depending on where you live. We have certainly areas in our county that we don't have reliable internet, but they may not be comfortable or have a good working knowledge of how to use it, that there are places for them to go to be able to enter that information. And of course, communicating the piece about that telephone response. I think that's huge, because in the past, all you could do is call up and get technical assistance about whether your form made it to you or not. Now you can actually fill that out, and I think that that is a valuable tool for us. And then also explaining to people, I think that that's our job as the folks whose message it is to make sure we get a complete count, is to let people know we want you to self-report. You don't want to have somebody have to come knock on your door to help do this. People are skeptical these days about folks coming to their door. And the gentleman in the back that had raised the issue about, concerns of, what kind of information do you want to give or not give? Obviously, the citizenship question, huge concern in our communities. And we're all waiting to see what that outcome is going to be. But what we've decided with our community census team is that the message we want to communicate is not answering whether or not somebody should fill out and answer a question or not. We want everyone to be counted, and by not being counted, you're doing the very thing that whatever the bigger, reason behind the controversy about whether we have a citizenship question or we don't have a citizenship question, the idea is everyone needs to be counted. And if you don't fill out your census form because you're standing on your laurels of, whatever that is, that I don't want to fill this out because I disagree with the government or whatever's happening, then we're doing the very thing that ultimately somebody wants, which is to not be counted and to lessen the resources that we get to our community, to lessen our representation in the government, all of those things. So encouraging people to be counted and helping to, give some level of comfort, the best that we all can, with respect to the security and the privacy issues that are certainly of concern these days. And I think with that, those were the key things I wanted to touch on. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over, although I don't know that you're going to be able to run your PowerPoint, but maybe yours will work. And then we'll be happy to take questions at the end with both of us. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Pauline's. Over here. We'll get this right. All right. This is my presentation. One fan. All right.
Tom, thank you. Okay, we're almost to happy hour. My name is Scott Wilkin, and I'm a senior planning project manager for the Maricopa Association of Governments. I can keep this brief because luckily Kim and Pauline talked about a lot of the stuff that I wanted to talk about. Pauline talked a lot about what the census means to you and your communities, and I think one of the big key takeaways that I just want to repeat is that $1,979 per person per year per that George Washington University study. But on a local scale, we also use census population estimates every year to distribute over $1.3 billion of state-shared revenue. So that is something that you're going to want to keep in mind, that affects every single one of you. The 2020 census will be the basis for those annual population estimates, and every year your population is probably going to increase, and it's going to be based on you just using this number as a base. If you are one of the 50 or so communities across Arizona that does home rule, you know that the population projections are based on the most recent decennial census, and so this affects you directly. And it also affects your long-term transportation planning and other infrastructure planning. And so in addition to the federal money, we've got state money, we've got local money, we've got all kinds of important things that the decennial census affects. Pauline talked a lot about the LUCA. We just finished going through that, and basically the LUCA is an attempt to make sure the Census Bureau has every address in order to send those letters in March 2020 to every address across the country. Another important geographical program that MAG is going to be participating in, and a lot of the COGS and appeals around the state will be taking part in, is the PSAP, or Participant Statistical Area Program. This one basically updates tracts and block groups and census-designated places as needed. This happens every 10 years, and as population grows, there are certain population thresholds for the census tracts and block groups. So if your old tract was one of the big ones, and now you've got a lot more population, it's probably going to get subdivided into more tracts, more block groups. The reason that's important is because there are a lot of programs, federal programs, that rely on tract boundaries. Historically underutilized business zones, opportunity zones, things like that are based on tract boundaries. We actually had in the Phoenix area, after 2020, we found out that there was one hub zone that was based on one tract that got split, and now part of that old tract wasn't eligible for the hub zone anymore, so those Small Business Administration funds could only go to the old tract number and not the new tract number. And so for this kind of reason, when we're conducting our PSAP review, we're going to be talking closely to the cities and towns to make sure that we're not messing with anything that would affect some of these programs that they're looking into. So in your community, you're going to want to be a part of the PSAP. Let your regional, your COG or MPO, your county, whoever's running it for you, know if you have certain areas that you don't want touched, or certain areas that do need to be subdivided or moved around. Another important geography program is the Boundary and Annexation Survey. This is one that happens every year at the beginning of the year when you tell the Census Bureau I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right one, so you are too. Tell the Census Bureau what land you've annexed in the past year. The big thing to take home from this is that the Census Bureau has drawn a red line in the sand saying any property, any land annexed after January 1st, 2020 will not be counted in the 2020 census. So if you've got your eyes on some land that you want to annex, you've got till the end of next year to do it, or else it won't be part of your results for Census 2020. They've explained that in the past they had a bunch of land grabs in late March of the decennial census here. They want to avoid that, so I guess they're moving the land grabs to the end of December 2019. But either way, just keep that one in mind, that January 1st, 2020 is that deadline. For what MAG is doing with Census 2020 preparations, we reviewed the LUCA data for our member agencies. For about 2/3 of them, I said we're conducting the PSAP updates. We conducted a number of training workshops, and we're holding another one. We just are starting to finalize one on PSAP itself for early October. So we'll invite our member agencies, and I think the Census Bureau is going to be doing a few more of those around the state to help make sure everybody understands how to do PSAP and what that means, what you're doing there. We're coordinating regional publicity and outreach. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But one of our big jobs, my big job, is the liaison with the Census Bureau staff. I talk to Pauline all the time. We'll be talking to VNA a lot now that she's going to be in charge of our area. I talk to the geographers in Denver. And anytime any of our member agencies have a question about what's going on with the Census Bureau, Census 2020, anything like that, they can come to me and I can get them an answer from Census. As far as public outreach goes, in the MAG region, in Maricopa County and just outside Maricopa County, we are working with the City of Phoenix to facilitate a region-wide media campaign. For 2020, Phoenix took the lead on that. They hired the media buyers. They filmed some of the media campaigns with some local celebrities. Every time we have one of these meetings, somebody brings up Leslie Nielsen. He was great. He's hilarious. So we're going to do that again. I don't know if we'll get into Leslie Nielsen again, but we're going to do the media campaign through City of Phoenix again. We're in the very early stages of that. And what we've talked about, at least what we did last time, was our member agencies paid a certain amount of money towards the media campaign, and then MAG, through the federal highways funds, paid a matching amount. Last time it was about 12 cents per person total, so each community paid about 6 cents per person, and then federal highways paid another 6 cents per person, and we're trying to figure out what the right amount is going to be for this time. We've already seen Rome. It's a great tool. If you haven't used it, you're definitely going to want to use it for your Complete Count Committee. It'll tell you where you need to focus your advertising and outreach. And if you haven't created your Complete Count Committee yet, this would be a great tool to figure out where in your community you want to make sure you have a representative representing. So if you can find out where your low response areas are, then you can find somebody from that community to be on the committee and help reach the people who live there. The last thing I just wanted to do a quick plug for, one of the reasons somebody mentioned that we do the census every 10 years is for statistics. At MAG, we have created a statewide demographic viewer using census data, and you can get to that at maps.azmag.gov. It has all the information from the most recent decennial census. It also has a ton of information from the American Community Survey, all the really detailed stuff that they don't ask in the decennial census. It's for every part of the state, every census block group, every census tract. You can get information, create maps, create reports, anything like that. Anytime I go somewhere, I've got to talk about this, so there it is. And it's pretty cool. I'm going to let you soak it in for a moment. These are our contact information. Annabov Bagley, who is my boss, is on his way to Washington, D.C. right now. He's really heading up all the technical support that MAG is doing for our member agencies. Kelly Taft, our communication director, is coordinating directly with Phoenix about the media campaign. And I'm me. I can do anything that Annabov wants me to do. So with that, I think Kim and I can take questions, or a little bit of time for questions.
I'll put in a quick plug for the demographic viewer as well, because it exists right now on a statewide basis thanks to the efforts of MAG to prepare that data and coordinate with the COGS and MPOs from throughout the state. So thank you to MAG.
Also, on the subject of the demographic viewer, we are in the early stages of putting together a training session for all of our map viewers in Bisbee for mid-October. So if you are from Southern Arizona, you should be hearing about that soon. You can come and learn how to use this, how to use our employment viewer. We go on schools. We've got all kinds of stuff. And so I'm going to be going down there in mid-October to help people figure out how to use these things.
Great. Thanks, Scott. All right, questions for Scott and Kim? Yes, sir.
Is there a cost for the use of the computer?
No, it is free. Yes, ma'am.
As the process walks along here, is there a way for city and council meetings set in at a particular point where you might get updates on what the responses are, how well your community is being responsive, how successful the outreach is being?
During the actual census when it's being conducted, I believe, and Pauline would be better about this.
And Emily's back there.
Emily's back there too. She could, if I'm saying anything wrong, please correct me. But I believe they're going to be able to do real-time updates on where the responses are coming from or not coming from, and so you'll be able to get that information during April and May.
Yeah. And I do understand that that's also going to help all the folks that are out in the field so that they're not spending time going to places where folks have already responded.
Sure.
Yeah, obviously you've got a lot of resources for the 6 main offices around the state, including, we talked a lot about Flagstaff, all of Coconino County. Okay. So what about Navajo County? What about Apache County? Where do we get those resources?
So my understanding, and I don't know if V&A is still in the room or where she went, but with respect to the office that's going to be in Flagstaff from the Census Bureau, that is going to be the regional office for all of the other northern counties as well. So there's going to be multiple counties that are going to be being supported out of that office.
So you've been involved with that process for quite a while, right? But I don't think Navajo County has. I don't think Apache County has.
Right. The Flagstaff office hasn't opened or been staffed yet. The work that Kim was describing between Coconino County and the city of Flagstaff has really just been a local effort that they launched about 5 months ago, Kim?
Yeah.
Good staff.
Yeah. And I would just encourage you, and I'm happy to give you my card. I'd be happy to make connections with folks in the other counties, especially up in our neck of the woods in terms of, providing resources or ideas or just letting folks come and even sit in on one of our meetings and see what we've put together. So absolutely, I'd be happy to give you my card.
There's also, I believe, going to be an office in Window Rock.
Yes, that's my understanding.
But another important point to remember, even though the office is going to be in Flagstaff, the offices are going to be in Phoenix, the office is going to be in Tucson, the hiring is going to be local. So you're not going to have people from all across northern Arizona go to Flagstaff every day, get their assignments to go knock on doors. They're going to be assigned where they're going to knock on doors based on where they live. And so the goal is to hire people across the state and send them out into their local community. That's one of the big changes they really talked about with this census, the new technology that they can send those assignments to people's homes so they can go directly from home to where they need to go and do their work, rather than everybody having to come in every day and get a sheet of paper with the assignments. They can get them in real time, and it'll be based on where they live. And so you'll have people in your community wherever your community is.
Just off your comment, what you just said, would it be good for cities and counties to provide a working space for that position, or are they wanting that person to do it from home? Would it be better to make it more visible in the community? What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't heard them say anything that would indicate that there's a need for that. There'll be central offices for people to work in, but by and large, people are going to be able to go from their home to where they need to do stuff.
On the PSAT screen that you had up there, one of the comments said that MPOs are required to assist their agencies. Is that actually a requirement for the MPO, or is that just how MAG does it?
Did I say required?
At least it gave the sense that this is what has to happen. No, not that one.
The previous one.
It's the one that actually had.
One more back.
Oh, back.
Yeah.
Back.
There we go. Conducted by MPOs.
Yeah, that's how they've done it in the past. That the PSAP is done regionally rather than every city doing it individually. I honestly don't know what the requirement is, but I know that MAG has done it in the past, and I think that that's the goal of. I think it differs across the country, and MAG, since we've got such strong COGS and MPOs, I think that's where they go first, but in some places it'll be the county doing it.
So that's justified me being to this meeting right now. Thank you.
And I would just add, I know, and certainly this is actually a conversation Chris and I need to have, but from Coconino County level, we're intending to be very actively involved in the PSAP process in terms of working with those community partners and the folks that need to be at the table to make sure that there is input to that. So, and I assume we're going to be working with NACOG as well to do that.
Yeah, and maybe to elaborate a little bit more to your question, Jerry, about coverage for areas outside of where there's an area office. Coconino County and Flagstaff have invited NACOG to participate with their committee, and part of the discussion we've been having is how can we take the activities that they're already engaged in and share those with other communities within our full county region. So, yes, sir.
If someone doesn't answer the question in relationship to citizenship, how is that going to be handled? Are we sending enumerators to go follow up on that, or how is that going to be handled?
Well, to be completely truthful with you, I haven't got a clear answer in that, and as you heard from Pauline today, they're able to speak even less about it right now because of the lawsuits that are currently in place. What I have been told by the Census Bureau is that, and I don't necessarily like this answer, and this isn't critical of any person, but just in terms of the answers, if somebody does not answer a question, one of our concerns in our area was, is it going to let the person submit? Because you know how when you fill out things online, if you don't fill out all the boxes, you get sent back with the little red asterisk that says fill it out. So that has been a question that's been asked from our community. Is that going to be a situation? Because we don't have the results yet, we don't have any results because they haven't been testing that question. When they did the Rhode Island testing, that question wasn't on there. But I believe, just like, and I don't know that that gentleman is still here, but in terms of that there have been times when people have left other questions blank, and I've been told that they're supposed to be able to still submit. Now, I don't like that answer because supposed to be able to doesn't give me an affirmative, but I'm hoping that, and I think that by the time, certainly by the time 2019 rolls around, or whenever we get to the resolution of this legal battle going on, that we will get clearer answers. And I have been told by the Census Office that yes, we will get you a clear answer as soon as we can give you one. So at this point, we don't have a clear answer. Certainly those are things we're getting asked, and those are concerns about submitting their census form.
For what it's worth, I've heard the same thing.
Yes, sir.
I'm from Quartzsite. We have a rural area. We have no high-speed internet. Most of our people are on Wi-Fi. Slow even to the main unit. We have a post office that does not deliver mail. We have a limited amount of post office boxes. Most of our winter visitors get their mail general delivery. We have between 500,000 and 1 million visitors during our winter visitor period of time. Many of them stay on the BLM campgrounds. We don't have access to those. We're going to obviously need a lot of help other than our local jurisdiction working with this. How do we get that additional help?
I don't want to speak certainly on behalf of the Census Bureau, and I think that is where that question will ultimately go. And I don't know, Emily, if you want to speak to that or if you're able to speak to that. I think that is certainly, my understanding is that is where a lot of those Census Bureau efforts are going to be, with hiring folks in those areas to be able to go out and be carrying other devices that folks can fill out the form on that do have reliable internet on them, so that they're going and actually assisting people to be able to fill out their forms. Is that a fair answer, Emily? I don't want to...
That is a fair answer, and Mayor, like I said, we can meet. I can answer all your questions, and we will definitely partner and make sure everyone in Merced is counted for.
There'll be a lot of people we lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we just want to get them all registered. They're important.
Of course.
One thing I'd check if I were you is to try to find out who conducted the LUCA for your area. I'd guess probably your county, and then you can see how they actually how they accounted for those spots. If they were able to provide an address for each one of those, then they may help you out a lot. And if not, then there may be some opportunity to try to pick
If I
that
could
up.
just say one more thing about the BLM visitors. That is a completely different operation. It will be listed on that timeline that they gave you.
Oh.
It will be considered group orders and others. So that is actually a completely different operation than the one that we're going to be working on within your city.
Thank you.
Excellent. I think that question from the mayor there in Quartzsite really captures the importance of beginning now your own local complete count program, because there are many communities throughout our state, particularly in rural areas, that have unique circumstances and populations that will be more difficult to count without even considering some of the technological barriers that we may face. So thank you for participating today. I want to thank our speakers for their time and attention. This does wrap up sessions for the day, and the next event will be dinner at 6:30.